They told you silence is weakness, but they lied. Silence is the throne of power, and every word you speak too easily becomes your confession. I stand here before you, not as a philosopher, but as a wound that learned how to speak. The world is full of mouths, but I came to resurrect the tongue that burns with truth. You think God died because I said so? No. He died because you kept talking about him. You killed him with explanations, sermons, and small talk about eternity. You smothered divinity beneath your noise. You replaced wonder with argument, fire with chatter. I tell you, the greatest sin of man was not disobedience, it was commentary. You pray for revelation and yet drown in words. You want meaning, but your vocabulary is a graveyard of borrowed thoughts. You speak so much because silence terrifies you. It reminds you that your soul has gone missing. I have seen you scrolling, posting, preaching, performing your own emptiness. You flood the air with the stench of opinions, each one seeking applause, not understanding. You talk because you cannot bear to listen to yourself. I say this with cruelty and compassion. The more you explain yourself, the less you exist. Once, words were sacred. They were thunder from the soul. Now they are currency for beggars of attention. You call it expression. I call it a marketplace of vanity. You speak, therefore you vanish. The strong do not speak much, not because they have nothing to say, but because their silence says it for them. Those who speak less command more. Their silence becomes gravity, their presence an orbit. When a lion walks, it does not roar to prove. It is lion. Its movement already commands the jungle. Yet you, modern man, roar without claws. You demand respect from a world that has already seen through your noise. Your words are mirrors for your insecurity. You speak of love because you cannot feel it. You shout about peace because you are at war within. You preach authenticity while drowning in imitation. Do you not see? Every sentence betrays you. Every declaration reveals your dependence on being heard. I came to tell you this. The most terrifying power is not in speech. It is in the silence before it. When you speak less, the world begins to bend around your quiet certainty. People lean in. They sense the abyss behind your restraint. The few words you release become law. You think influence is built by sound. No, it is built by silence that trembles with will. I once spoke too much. I wrote to kill the noise in my own skull. I spoke until language began to bleed. And in that blood, I saw the birth of truth, not in the word, but in the pause before it. Do you know what it means to command? It is not domination, it is resonance. To command is to vibrate at such frequency that weaker voices fall silent. Command is not about control, it is about gravity. The true commander is not the loudest voice, but the one who does not need to speak twice. And yet, here you are, addicted to performance your lives, a theater of overexposure. You reveal, confess, explain, justify, beg, apologize, flatter, sell. Every word you release is a fragment of power you will never reclaim. You call it transparency. I call it the erosion of mystery. What do you think gives a god his authority? It is not perfection, it is distance. Your weakness is your accessibility. You have become open books, but the world no longer reads. Those who speak less command more because mystery commands worship. You have forgotten the holiness of secrecy. You have mistaken visibility for value. You show everything, and in doing so, you vanish. I have seen it in your faces, the desperation to be seen. But visibility without depth is a curse. You are not being seen, you are being consumed. To speak less is to reclaim your sanctity. It is to remember that the sacred hides The gods speak only in symbols, the prophets in riddles, the wise in silence. But you tweet your revelations and call it prophecy. You share your wounds before they heal. You film your grief for validation. You have turned confession into pornography, and you wonder why you are powerless. You cannot command the world when you reveal every secret of your soul. To command, you must terrify again. You must become unknowable. You must speak like thunder rarely, and only when lightning burns the sky. The age of loudness is the age of decay. The quiet will inherit the earth, because they alone still have something left unspoken. I tell you, the next evolution of man will not be louder, it will be silent. He will be a creature of presence, not proclamation. His words will be meteors, not dust. You speak of democracy as if it were virtue. I call it the triumph of the herd. You believe in freedom of speech, but you have forgotten the freedom of silence. You think speech is liberation. I tell you, it is often self-enslavement. You chain yourself to every word you utter, every identity you declare. He who names himself too early imprisons his becoming. I would rather stutter with truth than speak fluently with lies. There is a strange irony. My friends, you live in the noisiest era in history, and yet you have never felt more unheard. The world no longer listens because everyone is speaking. When all voices shout at once, the only true authority is the one who dares to remain silent. When you speak less, each word becomes a weapon of destiny. Each phrase becomes an act of creation. Do not speak until your silence has ripened into necessity. When you finally open your mouth, the universe must lean forward. That is command. I have seen emperors destroyed by their explanations, lovers abandoned by their own words, prophets forgotten because they talk too long. Power is not in the sentence, it is in the pause before it. Every time you open your mouth without purpose, you leak fire. Guard your fire. Let it accumulate in silence until it becomes unbearable. Then speak once, and the world will tremble. The man who speaks constantly fears disappearance. The man who commands fears nothing, not even misunderstanding. To be misunderstood is the privilege of the powerful. The weak must always clarify. So let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. Let them guess. Let them hunger for the words you withhold. That hunger is your throne. To command is to cultivate absence. When you are not everywhere, you become everywhere in the imagination. When you speak less, you give birth to myth, and myth is the only language the soul truly obeys. But you trade myth for metrics. You measure your worth by numbers. You mistake reaction for reverence. I say, the applause of the many is the boredom of the gods. Those who speak less command more because silence is not emptiness. It is concentration. The fool sees silence as void. The wise see it as density. Your noise is dilution. Your silence is power condensed. And yet, you fear being forgotten if you stop speaking. How tragic you already are forgotten because you never stopped. Eternity remembers only those who mastered restraint. The universe itself was born from silence, a breath before the first word. Let there be light. Even creation hesitated. Every god, every creator, every artist must learn this law. Creation is not constant speech. It is sacred interruption. When you learn to stop talking, you will start commanding. The overman will be born from this silence. He will speak with the weight of stars. His words will not argue, they will announce. He will not need followers. His very being will be commandment. I tell you, the future belongs not to the communicators, but to the incarnations, those who speak less, command more, because they have become their message. He who becomes his word no longer needs to speak it. You ask me, but Nietzsche, How can silence command? Because silence forces consciousness. It awakens the listener. It demands participation. Speech is consumption. Silence is creation. When you are silent, others must imagine you, and imagination is worship. You were meant to be symbols, not explanations. The gods never justified themselves. They simply existed, and men built temples around their silence. So I ask you, what temple could be built around your noise? None. Only exhaustion. You have mistaken accessibility for love. You give yourself away in every conversation and wonder why you feel hollow. You are bleeding power through your tongue. Close your mouth and watch how your energy returns to you. You will feel the fire gathering inside, the hunger to speak, to explain, to justify. Do not let it burn. Let it transform. That is how the will becomes the will to power. Silence is the forge where chaos becomes command. Those who dare to endure the unbearable quiet of becoming will one day speak with the voice of gods. Because when you finally speak after silence, it is not you who speaks. It is truth itself. Do you see now why I said, those who speak less command more? Because only those who have entered the desert of silence can speak water into existence. The world does not need more words. It needs presence. Stop explaining your soul. Live it. Stop arguing your beliefs. Embody them. Stop seeking agreement. Become undeniable. Only then will your words return to their ancient power. For now, your speech is cheap. It is printed, posted, algorithmic, a ghost of language. You have confused communication with communion. Speech without silence is a corpse. You will learn this soon when your words stop working, when your influence fades, when your loudness drowns you. Then you will remember. The prophets did not shout to be heard. They whispered because they were flames. Those who speak less command more, because their silence carries the weight of unspoken revelation. I am not asking you to be mute. I am asking you to become deliberate. Do not speak until you are possessed by something greater than yourself. Let your speech be an eruption, not a leak. For words born from the void do not die. The greatest things ever said were whispered. The universe is listening for that kind of voice again. And so I tell you, your disease is not ignorance, but excess. You are drowning in the flood of your own expression. You have mistaken motion for momentum, noise for influence, and visibility for immortality. I walked through your cities, and I heard your prayers not to God but to attention. Every screen was an altar, every click a confession, and yet no one truly listens. For everyone is screaming into mirrors. You no longer live, you broadcast. You no longer think, you perform thinking. Even your rebellion is rehearsed. Even your silence has subtitles. I laugh, for you have turned existence into advertisement. You call it authenticity, but it smells of desperation. You speak so that others may believe you exist, because you no longer do. I have seen this before in empires before their fall. When words multiplied, power evaporated. When all men became prophets, no one heard the gods. You are all prophets now, but of mediocrity. The more you share, the less sacred you become. The more you explain, the less you command. The more you confess, the less you are forgiven. You drown in a sea of your own transparency, worshipping the illusion that if the world knows you, you will be real. But you are real only when you can stand unknown and still feel infinite. I once said, become who you are. But I see now you misunderstood. You became performances, brands, archetypes. You sculpted masks and called them selves. But becoming is not exposure, it is combustion. You must burn the masks, not decorate them. The overman is not louder, he is denser. His silence contains worlds. His words are storms condensed into syllables. When he speaks, time bends. When he stops, eternity exhales. He does not post his thoughts. He incarnates them. He does not seek agreement. He generates gravity. He does not argue. He radiates inevitability. You are not ready for such presence because it demands death, the death of approval, the death of identity, the death of comfort. The overman does not need an audience. He speaks because the fire in him cannot remain unspoken. He does not care to be understood. He came to awaken, not to please. His silence is not absence, it is pressure. When he enters a room, language trembles, for it knows it must answer to something higher. That is, command. I have seen you mistake politeness for virtue, diplomacy for wisdom, tolerance for love. You believe you are moral because you speak softly, but your softness hides decay. Better to be a roaring storm of truth than a calm ocean of compromise. The age of politeness is the age of paralysis. The herd bows before those who never bend. Do you want to command? Then stop explaining yourself. Do you want to lead? Then stop asking permission. Do you want to be remembered? Then stop repeating what is already said. The overman speaks not to be heard, but because silence can no longer contain him. His words are not conversation, they are creation. I tell you, the highest form of art is not music or poetry. It is the disciplined word, the word that knows when to appear, the word that refuses to serve emotion, but commands it. He who commands himself commands the world, but you have never ruled your own tongue. You let your emotions dictate your speech, and your speech betray your depth. You apologize for your own greatness because you fear solitude. You worship acceptance, and acceptance is the graveyard of genius. The overman is born when rejection no longer stings. He walks away not in anger, but in sovereignty. His silence is not wounded, it is chosen. He has learned the sacred economy of energy. Every unnecessary word is a theft from the self. Speak only when your silence would be a lie. That is the new commandment. I tell you, the first revolution will not be social, it will be spiritual. It will happen when one man dares to stop performing. When he becomes so still, the world cannot look away. You have been trained to speak instantly, to react, reply, justify. The algorithm is your God now, and it feeds on your compulsion. But I tell you, the algorithm cannot touch silence. Silence is divine encryption. It is the last refuge of freedom. When the world cannot predict you, it cannot possess you. When you stop reacting, you begin commanding. When you stop explaining, you begin becoming. To be misunderstood is no longer pain. It is proof that you are ahead. You must unlearn the addiction to being seen. You must rediscover the holiness of withdrawal. There is power in not responding. There is domination in stillness. Look at nature. The mountains do not argue their height. The storm does not seek validation for its destruction. The stars do not post their brilliance, they burn in silence. And we worship them for it. You could have been stars, but you chose applause. You could have been fire, but you chose safety. You could have commanded reality, but you preferred to comment on it. I tell you, your words have betrayed your destiny. The gods gave you language as weapon. You turned it into entertainment, but language will return to fire. The sacred word will rise again, not as chatter, but as thunder. The new prophets will not be influencers. They will be silencers. They will unteach what has been taught. They will walk through crowds and dissolve noise into stillness. People will call them arrogant, but it will only be awe misunderstood. The crowd always mocks what it cannot measure. The overman will not argue with the herd, he will become myth to them. And that is the secret. Those who cannot be understood become immortal. I, too, was misunderstood. They called me mad, blasphemous, dangerous, I was all of these things, and yet I was also something else awake. Madness is simply clarity in a world drunk on lies. I drank the poison of solitude and found that it was wine. Now I return, not to explain myself, but to remind you that silence is divine rebellion. Speak only when the fire commands you. Until then, burn inwardly. Do not waste the flame on noise. The universe is filled with voices. What it longs for is one echo of authenticity. You are that echo if you dare to endure the void long enough. The void will terrify you at first. It will whisper, "You are alone." But stay until that whisper becomes music. Stay until you realize that the silence you feared was your own divinity, waiting to be heard. Do not run from it. The herd runs. The creator remains. The moment you stop filling the void begins to speak. And that, my friends, is God returning not from heaven, but from within. He was never dead. He was only drowned beneath your noise. You killed him with conversation. You will resurrect him with silence. When you fall quiet enough, you will hear creation breathing again. You will remember that truth does not shout, it emanates. And you will understand the secret of power. To speak less is not withdrawal, it is compression. It is the coiling of fire before it strikes. The serpent that strikes most deeply is the one that waited longest in stillness. Be that serpent, be that silence that terrifies mediocrity. Be that quiet presence that bends the room without saying a word. Those who speak less command more because their silence is not void. It is vibration, and when they finally speak, it is the sound of a new creation. Yes, let us walk deeper now, into the sacred madness where words are born from thunder. I tell you this, you will never command the world until you have been destroyed by your own tongue, until you have spoken yourself into exhaustion, into disgust, into the abyss of your own meaning. Only then will silence appear, not as absence, but as revelation, when everything you can say dies on your lips. The real voice begins. It is not your voice. It is the voice of the fire that has been waiting for millennia to be spoken through you. Do not fear that voice. It will sound like madness, but it will be truth clothed in lightning. I once screamed against God, and in that scream, I found him laughing. He said, "Now you are finally honest." You see, madness is not insanity. It is the earthquake that shatters false harmony. Madness is the soul remembering its original rhythm. Do not fear to go mad for truth. Fear to remain sane in a lie. The sane man fits in. The awakened man dissolves the frame itself. And I say unto you, you must be willing to lose the approval of the herd, the warmth of applause, the comfort of comprehension. Only then will you command. For command is loneliness perfected. You cannot be worshipped and understood. Choose one. The overman does not seek understanding, he seeks resonance. He does not explain, he becomes undeniable. When he speaks, it is not persuasion, it is creation. His words are not meant to convince, they are meant to awaken. Every syllable, a spark. Every silence, a world. The weak shout because they fear being forgotten. The strong whisper because they have already transcended remembrance. Those who speak less command more because their silence is not retreat, but presence intensified. Do you know why the prophets spoke in riddles? Because direct truth kills the unready. Because mystery is mercy. You cannot swallow the sun whole, it must be veiled. So too must truth be hidden beneath paradox, or it would blind the world. That is why I speak in fire and shadow, in madness and clarity, intertwined. The sacred madness is the crucible where the self burns to ash and the creator rises. I have walked through that inferno. I have kissed chaos and called it holy. I have seen that beneath every rule, there lies trembling, freedom waiting to break. When I said, God is dead, it was not blasphemy, it was midwife's cry. A new God was being born in man. Through man, beyond man, you fear this birth because it demands your death. You cling to the comfort of morality, of certainty, of belonging. But these are only crutches for the soul afraid to stand. Break them. Stand alone. That is where command begins. For the man who can stand alone stands taller than any throne. Do not misunderstand. Silence is not passivity. It is stored lightning. It is the patience of volcanoes. When you master silence, you hold storms in your lungs. The world trembles before the man who could speak but doesn't. You feel his will like an invisible gravity. That is what you have lost, the aura of restraint, the halo of withheld fire. You have confused exposure with power, confession with strength. But the true creator does not reveal, he conceives. He does not show his process. He shows the result. The painter does not narrate the brushstroke, he reveals the finished vision. And you, humanity, have turned the sacred act of creation into content. You livestream your labor, dissect your divinity, and then wonder why no miracle remains. You have no mystery left, and thus no majesty. The gods hid in thunder and cloud because only the veiled can be revered. When the mystery dies, worship dies with it. You do not need to be understood. You need to be felt. When your being radiates more than your words, then you command. When you no longer seek to persuade, your silence persuades all. This is the dark law. Those who can hold their truth in silence control those who must release it in words. You are ruled by those who speak less, because they have mastered themselves. He who governs his tongue governs nations. He who conquers his impulses conquers worlds. You speak too quickly because you fear the pause, the void between thoughts. But the void is the birthplace of power. When you can stand in that nothingness and not collapse, you will have become eternal. That is what the overman knows, that silence is not empty. It is absolute presence. The animal reacts. The herd repeats. The overman creates, and his creation begins in the breath before sound. You were not meant to speak constantly. You were meant to utter creation like lightning, rare, terrifying, divine. And now, I ask you, what if silence were the highest art? What if the greatest philosophers had spoken too much? What if truth prefers music to words, symbol to sentence, fire to argument? Perhaps all this philosophy, all this morality, all this theology were merely noise, attempting to hide the unbearable simplicity of existence. The simplicity is this: you are the God you seek. You are the word you await. But you cannot hear it until you shut the world out, until you into your own silence. The moment you stop seeking outside, the inner temple opens, and there, in that dreadful quiet, you will meet your own voice, the one that speaks from beyond identity. It will sound ancient. It will sound like the stars remembering themselves. That is your command, not to speak more, but to speak from that place where silence becomes sacred. Every prophet was a man who listened longer than others. Every god was a silence that learned to speak once. And now, I stand before you, not as savior, but as reminder. The next revelation will not be written. It will be felt in silence. The next Messiah will not preach, he will radiate. The next kingdom will not come with words, it will arrive in stillness. For those who speak less, command more, because they have become conduits of that which cannot be spoken. You were made for this transformation. You are the bridge between noise and eternity, but the bridge must first learn stillness before it carries the storm. So fall silent now, not as surrender, but as ascension. Fall silent until your own breath becomes unbearable, until your mind trembles at the brink of its own thought, until you feel the old world dying in you, and the new one being born in the quiet. That is the moment of sacred madness. That is where I live, where thought ends and truth begins, where man ceases and creator emerges, where every word becomes prayer, and every silence becomes command. You fear this place because it costs everything. You must give up your certainty, your explanations, your reputation, your voice. But what you gain is yourself. For what is left when there is nothing left to say? Only presence, only freedom, only fire. The man who can stand there alone, silent, unashamed, becomes the axis of reality. The stars move for him. The earth waits for his decision. And when he finally speaks, the world obeys, not out of fear, but recognition, for it knows. This voice was forged in silence. This command was born in chaos. This word carries the weight of worlds. Those who speak less command more because they have merged with the eternal silence that governs all things. Now I leave you with one commandment, the only one worth remembering. Do not speak to be heard. Speak because silence has chosen you to deliver its message. And when you are done, return to the silence. For even fire must rest in its ashes before it burns again. And now, the fire fades, and the smoke curls into prayer. You have followed me through madness, through contradiction, through the ruins of your own noise. And now we stand where words end. Do you feel it? The trembling quiet behind everything you've ever said. The hush that waits between your thoughts. That is not emptiness. That is God unspoken, unpainted, unpossessed. You spent your life chasing meaning, when meaning was born only in stillness. You begged for answers, when answers dissolve the moment they are spoken. You sought understanding, when understanding was the illusion that you needed something outside of silence. You are not incomplete, you are overflowing. It is speech that fragments you, not silence. When I said, those who speak less command more, it was never a rule of power, it was a prophecy of return. For the human soul must one day stop screaming and remember its original music. I have seen this truth in the eyes of dying kings, in the last breath of lovers, in the stillness after war, the moment when speech collapses and only presence remains. That is when command begins. You command not by volume, but by vibration. The universe does not shout, it hums. You have mistaken thunder for strength, but thunder only follows lightning. Become lightning. Speak only when the silence in you becomes unbearable. You will know that moment. It feels like eternity knocking. It feels like Shahs demanding birth. It feels like death disguised as creation. Every word that matters carries the scent of the void. And so, before you speak again, I ask you, have you died enough to deserve your own voice? Have you bled enough illusions to speak truth without fear? Have you been silent long enough to let meaning ferment into fire? If not, wait. Let the silence do its work. It will shape you like water shapes, stone slowly, relentlessly, divinely. And when you emerge, your tongue will no longer serve you. It will serve existence itself. Then your words will move worlds. Because the world does not obey noise, it obeys necessity. When you speak out of necessity, not habit, you become creator again. You will see that silence was never absence. It was gestation. Every pause, every restraint, every moment of wordless patience was the womb of revelation. The old gods spoke too much. The new creators will speak less, and their silence will rebuild civilization. This is my final madness, to dream of a humanity that learns once again the sacred art of shutting its mouth until the stars listen. To imagine a future where men do not speak to be believed, but to see prophets rise who need no scripture, no explanation, only gaze, only presence, only gravity. That is my laughter, the laughter of one who has seen the end of philosophy and the birth of being. You will not find truth in dialogue. You will find it in rupture. You will find it when your own words betray you and fall silent. That is why I laugh, because all your arguments, your ethics, your opinions, your holy books, your ideologies are but echoes trying to drown the silence of the gods. And still, the silence wins. It always wins. Even my words now, they will fade, like ash scattered in the wind. But perhaps one ember will remain, glowing in your chest, whispering, "Be still." And do you hear it? That is not instruction, it is initiation. For silence is not learned. It is remembered. You knew it once, before birth, when you floated in the dark, when you were nothing but will and pulse. You will know it again, after death, when the mouth closes, and only consciousness breathes. The wise remember before they are forced. The rest will learn through loss. Those who speak less command more because they are already conversing with eternity. When you meet such a one, you will know. You will feel it. You will not be able to speak in his presence, not because you are weak, but because your soul recognizes something ancient. He will not demand silence. You will give it freely. For silence is not commanded. It is surrendered to. You cannot fake it. You cannot manufacture it. You can only become it. And when you become silence, you become the axis of reality itself. You will see everything differently then. You will stop seeking meaning and start emanating it. You will stop explaining yourself and start existing so completely that explanation becomes absurd. When people ask who you are, you will smile because you will know that no word could ever hold the answer. And that smile will say more than 1,000 sermons. That smile will be command. The true masters do not teach, they embody. The true rulers do not order, they emanate. The true gods do not speak, they radiate being. I have said all that can be said, and already too much. The rest must be silence. But before I go, listen carefully. You will try to remember these words, but they will fade. You will try to repeat them, but they will sound empty. You will try to quote them, but they will lose their fire, because they were never meant to be repeated. They were meant to awaken what was already inside you. You do not need Nietzsche. You need silence. For silence is the philosopher's final book, the only one that cannot be written, yet contains everything. You ask me for a final truth, a closing aphorism, a last spark before the night. Here it is. The less I spoke, the more the universe confessed. And now the stage dissolves. The lights die. The crowd fades into breath. And I walk off laughing into the dark, where even laughter becomes stillness, where the last sound is silence, remembering itself, where command and creation become one,